My name is George Ryan. I'm here to talk about the effects of urbanization on cougar foraging ecology along the wildland-urban gradient of western Washington. So a little bit about the article. It was written by Clint Robbins, who is on the left, who is a PhD candidate, um, actually under Aaron Worsing, who is his faculty advisor at University of Washington, and on the right is Brian Kurtzen, who works for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and he is a carnivore research scientist. Also in the article is James Faulkner, who also works for the University of Washington um, in the quantitative ecology and resource management. So this article came out in the Journal of Ecosphere and was first received October 27, 2018, accepted November 13th, 2018. The final paper was finally accepted in January 16th, 2019. So a fairly recent study. So why this article? Why is it important? So the purpose of this article is since wildland-urban gradient is constantly changing, we were trying to see how the predators change its feeding form, its feeding pattern, and what types of food it eats because of the constant change. So the ecological questions that the authors are attempting to address is to see the effect human expansion has on predators and their food selection, which a cougar has a wide variety of food choices. So this will be seeing how they change depending on areas. So their hypothesis was the more synanthropes there'd be, um, the more there would be more synanthropes consumed and fewer deer, um, in the more building dense area. The rationale was this because synanthropes benefit from human interactions, so there'd be more readily available, so they'd be more easily consumed in large quantities due to their availability. So this study is done to the ecosystem level. That is because it is not only dealing with interactions of predators, prey in the environment, it also has to do with biotic and abiotic factors, which is are affected by humans and affects all parts of their landscape. So with that being said, because humans have an effect on this means it is applied research because it's seeing how this is changing as a result of human fault. So how was this done? So as seen on this picture, there's a map of the 4,450 square kilometer areas in which it was recorded. This was in Washington. There was major towns and cities in it, so that there would be able to calculate different building densities. So how this was then done was they had trained dogs and cage traps to capture and tag the cougars with GPS through 2004 to 2008, and then again in 2013. The GPS, once fitted, once every 4 hours, turned on for 180 seconds to track the data. This was so it could optimize the data with the longest possible battery life. So then once they, excuse me, found a pattern, they found a kill site where they thought an animal, the cougar would have killed the animal, went out and updated the animal it killed, and then put on a GPS coordinate where it killed that animal and what type, and kept record of all this. So the next is the results. Um, so they found out the cougars still choose deer over um, what the synanthropes. Well, a synanthrope is a species that benefits from human interaction. So raccoons and some types of birds that live better with more building density, while an ungulate is a hoofed mammal, so the deer. And if you look at section A, the black-tailed deer was still the most consumed one by quite a long shot, which shows that the cougars were choosing the most, which completely counteracted their hypothesis. So, just looking at the quantity consumed, so one might argue or say, what about the density affected? So this graph looks at the probability of a cougar eating each type. So the synanthropes had the lower the building density, the lower the probability that it would be consumed. That is most likely because those are dependent on human interactions. So the more building dense it is, the more um, likely it would be that they would be consumed, which is still much lower than euganthalates, which even with a building density doesn't change drastically. It increases a little bit with building density, but it is still by far has the highest probability of being consumed. Lastly is rodents. Rodents decrease with building density. That is because with the higher the building density, the harder they were to catch. This was significant because it shows that building density does not change the cougar's feeding patterns, which could show the adaptation of big predators with the changing urban wildland gradient. So some analysis of this. The big picture, this studies the interaction of the food chain once humans have a cause in it, which is why it's important is because this will continue to be a problem. The population is growing and people are expanding out. More people want more land so that humans are using resources and making smaller habitats for big predators. Um, so this also can relate back to class because this is showing how animals still surviving when ecosystems change. The original hypothesis was predicting that it would change its eating habit because of the changing landscape, but the cougars managed to find a way to still keep their original eating habit, which just shows their adaptations. Um, so some criticisms of the article. I would have liked to have seen how in each area the abundance of the different types of prey. They said that deer quantity decreased, but it would have been nicer to have a more quantifiable number, and then to see how much more readily available the deer were versus synanthropes. Man, that is a hard word. It is to be able to see the difference in the numbers of quantity and see if how much of a factor that had. So in the future, there'd be two routes I think it'd be a good way to explore. The first one would be to see how much building density would have to happen until synanthropes are the primary form for predators. Because as you can see at the end of the previous slide, it was starting to increase with building density, but not nearly as much as ungulates. So to see what the proper density would be for that to have to get up to that level would be one word to take the research. And see also practical application would be see how much of a building density would be or what would change it, which would cause um, cougars to primarily target farm animals and domestic animals, because that could be another major problem with continued urban growth. So thank you for your time, and I hope this was informative.